Boyd Broncos are back in action after an off week as Coach Don Drake joins us now. And Don, how useful was that bye for your team?
You know, very useful, and I've been in situations where our bye week has felt like week 3 before you start district play, and then you run all 7 district ball games. It's been pretty beneficial the last couple of years for us to have that bye week in the middle of district play. It gives our kids a chance to relax a little bit, it gives us a chance to heal some guys up, obviously create a refocus for your final push to the end of the regular season. So very, very beneficial for us last week.
Before that open week, Boyd took on Naaman Forest on homecoming at Ron Post Stadium, a Friday night game a couple of weeks ago. It was a workmanlike 28-10 victory for the Broncos as we check out the highlights from Ron Post Stadium. Don, you were frustrated a little bit early on with your offense, not after the first drive actually. The first drive was a march down the field for your offense, 15 plays, 93 yards, took 6 minutes off the clock, and 8 of those plays were handoffs to the leading 5A rusher in the area, Brian Driscoll.
Yeah, I was real impressed with what our kids did in that first possession. I think it was a 90-something yard drive, if I remember correctly, and I think it was 15 snaps. And, you know, that showed a lot of execution, a good job of managing the clock, etc. We finished it with a touchdown, so I was really pleased with what we did on that first possession. Unfortunately, I didn't think that we followed it the rest of the night with very good execution on the offensive side.
Well, your defense didn't need much more than a 7-0 lead. Here's how the Naaman Forest drives went in the first half. 4 punts, a fumble, and the end of the half. That was as good a defensive performance as maybe you've had all year.
Oh, I think so. You know, I thought our kids played exceptionally well on the defensive side. I was very pleased with our performance there. I thought we tackled well. I thought we fitted in the right places, and so I thought we played extremely well defensively.
Your defensive line crashing down on that Naaman Forest running game that piled up only 53 yards on 34 attempts. Now, sacks were part of that, lost yardage here and there, but Joaquin Davis had only 66 yards on 14 carries, Naaman Forest's leading rusher. Meanwhile, you were trying to involve more weapons in your arsenal offensively. We saw the handoff to tight end Dylan Dickman.
Yeah, we started using Dylan in the slot receiver position for us. I thought he had a very good night for us offensively. He was our leading receiver. He obviously carried the football for us a few times as well and did a pretty good job there, and so I was pretty pleased with his performance.
Curtis Ladd had a nice little game after a slow start in the passing game. Finds Jared Semek there. Ladd 13 of 19 for 125 yards, 2 second-half touchdowns. And oh, by the way, yes, Ladd the Jackrabbit made an appearance. 33 yards to the end zone as he wheels away from the Ranger defense to make it 14-0.
Yeah, I thought Curtis played well, you know, and that's the thing that I want to see out of him being a sophomore is that every week he's consistently making plays. He's making the right decisions, putting the ball in the right place, taking care of the football, and I've been real pleased with his performance over the last few weeks.
Jamal Palmer was not fooled by that bit of gadgetry from Naaman Forest, able to throw the Naaman Forest running back down for a loss. How close do you think this defense is to a championship caliber defense that you had a year ago?
You know, I think they're pretty close. One of the things that I challenged the kids this morning was, you know, last year at this point is where our defense really started scoring for us and putting the ball in the end zone for us. And that's not something that we've done a lot of so far this season, but hopefully we'll catch that trend like we did a year ago and we'll start creating some turnovers that we're turning into points.
Curtis Ladd finds his older brother Patrick Ladd. Ladd to Ladd for the touchdown. That combination worked in the second half, not for 1 but 2 touchdowns as you continue to grind away at Naaman Forest, and the Rangers didn't have any room to work with here. Ladd using play action and once again finding some room, a nice block on the edge. You've said you would like maybe some more explosion on offense. You know what number 5 gives you in Brian Driscoll, but overall your offense is able to improve on this night as the night went forward.
You know, I thought there were some bright spots. Obviously, you touched on Curtis and his throws to his brother Patrick, and Patrick ended up with 2 scores in the night, which I was real proud of him. And so there were some bright spots. I already touched on Dylan Dickman a second ago, but, you know, we've got to find more consistency with our play because that's what we've been lacking. And, you know, I think I said it after the ball game. It's about the potential that you have and making sure that you reach that full potential in terms of your performance. And I see a lot of things that we are capable of that we're not actually doing right now. Obviously, we're focused on that. We're addressing that with the kids. We're working that in practice. But we just got to become more consistent in terms of our play offensively.
How about Dickman? Nice balance in the open field. He had 6 catches for 55 yards. He also had 4 carries for 28 yards. And, of course, Brian Driscoll did his thing as well. 9 carries for 193 yards and a score. And Ladd able to maneuver out of trouble and just floats it to his brother, the second touchdown. What's it like, that dynamic brother and brother on the same team? You've had it with James Driscoll and Brian Driscoll last year at the varsity level, and now you have it with the 2 lads.
You know, I think the biggest thing is it's a neat deal for the kids that are involved in that. You know, I got to play high school football with my brother, who was 2 years younger, and so it's a neat thing being on the field at the same time, sharing that camaraderie, sharing that same experience. It's something that they'll remember for a long time.
So the final score, 28-10, Boyd over Naaman Forest. Story in this district is 2 teams at the top right now, 3-0 records, Garland and Rowlett. Those 2 teams face off this week. Last year, a Rowlett victory over Garland after the Owls had beaten your team kind of opened the door for you. And once again this week, you'll be paying keen attention, I'm sure, to what happens Friday night after you play North Garland Thursday night at Williams Stadium. Friday night at Williams, Garland and Rowlett.
There's no doubt. There's some real key matchups in this district race. They're going to happen over the next 4 weeks. The one that you mentioned is obviously a key game. You know, we play Sachse, we play Rowlett in South Garland after this week. You know, Garland and Sachse play week 10, so there's still a lot of football to be played. There's still a lot of shuffling in that district race that can happen depending upon the performances of the teams involved, and so it'll be a very interesting race as we close to the finish.
And you close with 4 straight Thursday night games. The first one this week, Williams Stadium against North Garland, an 0-6 team. But like you said against Naaman Forest, at this point, sometimes it's not so much about the opponent, it's about improving yourself.
That's true. You know, I think anytime you take the field, you want to win, but you want to get better while you're doing that. You know, and I think that that's the thing that you have to focus on with your kids is that weekly improvement. That's something that I thought we did last year as a ball club. Every week we got better as the season went on, and that's what I hope to see out of this year's club, is that we're playing our best football at the end of the year, and that requires, you know, daily work in practice, daily focus in practice, and obviously when you get the opportunity to compete, that's taking that focus and taking that preparation to the field.
What do you see from North Garland at this point? Obviously a tough situation right now for David Ferris and his Raiders team.
You know, they're athletic. I mean, they always are. You know, they've got athletes on the field, which worries you, because that means you've got some kids out there that if you don't play the kind of football you're capable of, then you're going to give them opportunities to make some plays themselves and put you in a bad situation. You know, they've got a kid back in the backfield that's playing some at quarterback and also at running back, who's the brother of the kid they had last year, the Washington kid, who's a very talented football player and has the ability to put the ball in the end zone if you give him the opportunities to do so. You know, defensively they've struggled. There's no doubt, as you can tell statistically and through the scores. But again, that goes back to us and our execution, and we've got to do what we need to do to take care of the football and to effectively move the football. You know, and if we don't do that, then we'll be in for a dogfight.
How do you like overall how your team has moved on from the loss to Garland early in the district schedule that could cripple most teams, and yet you come out with a methodical victory over Naaman Forest, you have the bye, recharge, and now you're ready for the final 4 games?
Well, I think, you know, I'll know a little bit more about how to answer that question once we get through, you know, this week and as we prepare again for the weeks that are ahead. You know, if I look back a year ago, I thought our kids handled it and managed it very well. You know, looking backwards, hopefully we've learned from that experience. I think that our kids understand that, yeah, that loss to Garland, while it was upsetting and not what we wanted, we can use that as a catapult into the latter half of the season and making sure that we finish the way that we need to.
A story in this school district in McKinney ISD has really been concussions. We talked about this with Jeff Smith of McKinney and Mike Fetchy of North just a moment ago. McKinney, of course, lost its quarterback Robert Somborn last week because of that injury. North lost a couple of players for the season because of that injury. You've had to deal with it too, going back to last year, this year as well. Your quarterback Curtis Ladd suffered a blow against Garland, came out just for precautionary reasons. He was fine the next week. But how has that injury changed this game? Not so much that it's more common nowadays, just that with legislation and the improved testing, the diagnosis, it's much sharper than it was, say, a decade, 2 decades ago.
Oh, there's no doubt. You know, there was a time that if a kid experienced a blow like that, then you called it getting your bell rung. And as long as the kid had his wits about him, you really didn't worry a whole lot about throwing him back into the football game. obviously with the amount of attention that's been brought to concussions and the second concussion syndrome or second impact syndrome that you have out there, you know, we're very cautious about putting a kid back into a football game if we feel like there's any symptoms at all that might be symptomatic of a concussion. And so, you know, with our impact testing that we do now, we can always compare where they are now with their baseline that they had prior to any kind of contact, and that gives us a better understanding of whether something was a concussion or it wasn't a concussion. Unfortunately, on game night, you don't have that luxury, and so you basically just have to use common sense and use the advice of your medical personnel that you have there on the sideline and whether or not they think a child needs to be inserted back in the game or not. You know, in Curtis's particular case, it turned out that it was not a concussion, but on game night, on that particular night, it was our feeling that, you know, Coach, we can't really take the chance of putting him back out there. And so we did what we needed to do, and that is leave him on the sideline and put another kid on the field. So, you know, it is changing the game because of how much more we know about it now than probably what we knew, you know, in the last 10 or 15 years.
Don, we appreciate the time. Good luck this week.
Thank you.
Don Drake, head coach of the Boyd Broncos. They try to keep on humming in District 10 5A as they take on North Garland on the road. Williams Stadium, the site, Thursday night, a 7 o'clock kick.